Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking this incredibly revealing piece of source material. It's from the Lexington Herald-Leader, specifically from May 4th, 2026.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read.
Right, and it centers on the University of Kentucky, UK, and their multimedia marketing rights partner, which is this company called JMI Sports.
Exactly.
And our mission for today's deep dive is really to pull apart this very specific, very modern tension. We're looking at how these deeply rooted collegiate traditions are just completely colliding head-on with the, frankly, staggering financial realities of modern college sports.
Yeah, we are basically watching the real-time restructuring of amateur athletics into professionalized corporate entities. It's wild to see the strategies they're employing just to survive right now.
Totally. So to set the stage for you, imagine walking into any town square in the country, right?
Yeah.
And you find the most revered, historic, civic monument. Maybe it's a statue or a memorial honoring fallen veterans.
Oh.
Now imagine proposing that we just slap a bright neon corporate logo right across the front of it.
People would lose their mind.
Exactly. You'd expect an absolute riot, pitchforks in the streets. It feels like this fundamental violation of civic pride.
Oh, it would absolutely be seen as the ultimate desecration.
Right.
Because there's this deeply ingrained cultural line, between what we consider sacred civic history and what is just simply commercial real estate available for lease.
Right. But, and here's the hook, what if the people maintaining that monument suddenly got handed this astronomical, non-negotiable bill?
Yeah, a massive bill.
A recurring expense so steep that if they don't pay it, the whole institution that built the monument might just collapse entirely. Suddenly that neon sign starts looking less like a desecration and, I don't know, a lot more like a necessary life raft.
That's a great way to put it.
Because UK isn't just shaking the couch cushions here for a little extra travel money for the volleyball team. They are trying to cover a $20.5 million annual bill every single year.
And that's the kicker.
Yeah, and they have to do it without alienating this fiercely loyal fan base that basically treats the university's history as sacred ground.
Well, to really understand the gravity of this, we have to look at where that $20.5 million mandate actually comes from.
Right, because it's not just made up.
No, not at all. This isn't some arbitrary fundraising goal for, like, a fancy new weight room. This is the direct result of the NCAA's House legal settlement.
Right, so if you're listening and wondering how a university suddenly finds itself $20 million in the hole, literally overnight, let's break that down.
Let's do it.
For decades, the NCAA operated on this very strict amateurism model. Athletes could get scholarships, sure, but they absolutely could not be paid a salary.
Right, that was the golden rule.
But then the House versus NCAA antitrust lawsuit challenged that entirely. They argued that the NCAA was illegally restricting athletes' earnings.
And they won, essentially.
Yeah, the settlement basically shattered that old model. It allows schools to directly share revenue with their athletes up to a cap of $20.5 million annually.
And here's the thing about that cap. It is a hard cap that any competitive athletic department is going to view as a mandatory floor.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you want to recruit the best talent in the country, you have to be prepared to spend that full $20.5 million.
If you don't, someone else will.
Exactly. But the problem is university athletic departments historically operate like nonprofits.
Right.
They spend whatever they bring in on facilities, coaching salaries, travel. They don't just have $20 million in liquid cash sitting in a giant vault somewhere.
Which means the athletic director suddenly has this massive crater in their operating budget that opens up on January 1st of every single year. You have to find new revenue streams, and you have to find them fast.
So UK starts looking at their assets.
Yep.
They survey the campus, and their eyes land on the absolute crown jewel historic Memorial Coliseum.
And it is so crucial to understand the emotional and historical weight of this specific building.
Oh, it's immense.
Memorial Coliseum opened way back in 1950. It was the legendary home of the UK men's basketball team during some of their absolute most dominant eras, right up until Rupp Arena opened in 1976.
Right. And today, it still hosts volleyball, women's basketball, gymnastics, stunt programs. I mean, the university just poured $82 million into renovating it.
But it's not just a sports cathedral. The source material points out this detail that makes the whole situation incredibly delicate.
Yeah, this is the really sensitive part.
The building contains a literal tribute to over 9,000 servicemen and women from Kentucky who died in World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and subsequent military conflicts.
That is the defining complication here. Yes, it operates as a functional sports arena, but fundamentally it is a solemn war memorial.
So put yourself in the shoes of the marketing department for a second. How on earth do you sell the naming rights to a literal war memorial without creating a public relations catastrophe?
It's a tightrope walk.
You can't just throw a supermarket logo on the side of a building dedicated to fallen
Oh,
soldiers.
you really can't. And
Yeah.
you definitely cannot do a total replacement. Like back in 2017, UK actually changed the name of their football stadium from Commonwealth Stadium to Kroger Field.
Right, they just swapped it out.
Exactly. They swapped the name entirely.
Yeah.
But Jacob Most, he's UK's Director of Strategic Communications, he made it very clear in the source material that they're absolutely not removing the memorial designation from the Coliseum.
Well, I would hope not. I mean, Kroger Coliseum doesn't exactly project reverence for military sacrifice.
No, it doesn't. So JMI Sports and UK are proposing this highly specific linguistic strategy to kind of thread this needle.
Okay, what's the strategy?
The official name will remain Historic Memorial Coliseum. However, it will be presented by, or, and this is a very calculated twist, preserved by a corporate sponsor.
Wait, preserved by?
Yep.
That feels like a huge semantic leap. I mean, isn't that just a corporate sponsorship dressed up in a tuxedo?
Yeah.
Do fans actually buy that a corporate logo is this act of civic philanthropy rather than just a commercial transaction?
I mean, it is entirely PR spin, let's be real.
Yeah.
But from a psychological standpoint, it is incredibly effective. Well, yeah. By framing a corporate sponsorship as preservation, they shift the entire narrative. Jacob most explicitly stated that the history and the meaning behind the Coliseum actually add value for a partner who wants to be associated with honoring service and community.
Okay, I see the logic there. It positions the sponsor not as this invasive advertiser just buying up billboard space, but as a wealthy benefactor performing a civic duty.
Exactly.
They're stepping in to ensure the building remains a, quote-unquote, vibrant community cornerstone.
It's a total masterclass in using semantics to soften the blow of commercialization. You take the absolute most sensitive element of the asset, the memorial aspect, and you turn it into the core selling point for a corporate partner looking to polish their public image.
It's a clever maneuver, for sure, but let's be honest, naming rights on one building won't cover a recurring $20.5 million bill.
Not even close.
A building might net you a few million a year, tops. They need more inventory. And since they can't just invent new buildings out of thin air, they have to monetize something previously considered completely untouchable.
The athletes themselves.
Exactly. If the arena is sacred ground, the team uniform is the final frontier.
And for decades, the only logo allowed on a collegiate uniform was the manufacturer. The Nike swoosh, the Adidas stripes.
All right.
But that barrier officially fell in January of 2026. The NCAA changed the rules, allowing schools to sell advertising for up to 2 patches on regular season uniforms.
Though we are talking about very small patches here, the rules stipulate they can be no more than 4 square inches. Plus, they can put ads on football helmets.
Right.
Now, if you are listening to this and thinking about the logistics, a question probably comes to mind.
Absolutely.
If JMI Sports needs to help UK find tens of millions of dollars, why make it so complicated? Why doesn't Paul Archies, the president of JMI Sports, why doesn't he just find one massive Fortune 500 company, say a major airline or a tech giant, and sell them the rights to every single UK uniform across all 20-plus sports?
Just one giant check.
Right. Collect one giant check, make it a monopoly, and save yourself the headache of negotiating 20 different deals.
Well, Archie actually addresses that directly in his presentation. He acknowledges that a single, all-encompassing sponsor would technically be the easiest and maybe even the most profitable deal in a vacuum.
Okay.
But that is not the strategy they're pursuing. He told the Champions Blue Board that they are looking at what he called an unbundled strategy.
Let's define unbundled in this context. How are they actually breaking this down?
So instead of selling the whole athletic department to one single buyer, they are grouping sports together strategically based on market demographics. Yeah. So they might bundle baseball and softball together and sell that as a specific package to, say, a sporting goods company.
Right.
Or they might sell a platform across all women's sports to a brand specifically looking to align with female athletics.
That makes total sense from a dynamic pricing standpoint. It's kind of similar to how airlines price seats based on routes and demand, rather than just selling the whole plane for a flat rate.
Exactly.
Like a B2B software company might be willing to pay a massive premium for the men's basketball uniform because they want to reach wealthy alumni watching those specific games.
But they have zero interest in paying for the gymnastics team's uniforms.
Right. Unbundling lets JMI extract the maximum value from different corporate sectors.
And that demographic targeting is a huge factor.
Yeah.
But there's actually a much larger structural caveat that forces this unbundled approach, and it makes pricing these little 4-square-inch patches an incredibly difficult math problem.
No.
Yeah, the NCAA rule change allows for these patches during regular season play only.
Only the regular season. Wait, so what happens in March?
The patches have to come off.
You're kidding.
It's what we call the postseason penalty. See, the NCAA completely controls the men's basketball tournament March Madness.
Right.
And the college football playoff examines and controls its own deals, too.
Mm.
The moment Kentucky makes the postseason, those highly lucrative uniform ads are superseded by whatever the governing body dictates.
Wow. That is a staggering loss of value for a sponsor.
It's massive.
I mean, the moment the team is playing in the most watched, highest stakes games of the entire year, the games that are broadcast to tens of millions of people, the sponsor just loses their billboard.
And Archie was remarkably candid about this hurdle. He stated that the postseason represents roughly 50% of the total value of these uniform patches.
50%.
Yeah, half the value just evaporates the moment the regular season ends.
That's wild. And I imagine the valuation fluctuates wildly even during the regular season based on television exposure, right?
Oh, significantly. If Kentucky is playing a marquee basketball game on a major over-the-air broadcast network like ABC or CBS, what the industry refers to as a linear network, that patch is worth exponentially more than if they're playing some midweek non-conference game buried on the SEC network.
So, returning to your point about unbundling, if you group everything together into one giant contract, the sponsor takes on an enormous amount of risk.
Exactly.
They have to gamble on how far the basketball team goes in March or what crime time slots the football team manages to secure in October.
Right, and by unbundling it, JMI can price the baseball patches based purely on baseball's specific television metrics without those numbers being dragged down or inflated by the basketball team's postseason television ban.
Okay, that makes sense. It isolates the risk. But still, managing dozens of highly volatile, dynamically priced sponsorship deals across multiple sports, that requires a staggering amount of corporate infrastructure.
It's a massive undertaking.
Which really brings us to the entity actually pulling all these levers. Because JMI Sports isn't just some consulting firm popping in with a few fun marketing ideas.
No, not at all.
They are deeply structurally embedded into the University of Kentucky's financial ecosystem. And the source material lays out the financials of this partnership, and honestly, the numbers are breathtaking.
They really are.
UK and JMI signed a 15-year contract extension. Under this deal, UK receives 80% of all revenue from advertising and inventory sales.
Yep.
The guaranteed money to the university over the course of that deal was originally estimated around $465 million. But in Paul Archie's presentation, he noted that figure is actually closer to $500 million in guarantees.
$500 million.
$500 million.
And for $500 million, JMI essentially becomes the architect of UK's commercial soul.
That's a good way to put it.
They are no longer just selling billboard space at the baseball stadium or negotiating naming rights for the Coliseum. They are the official provider of NIL services to the athletes themselves.
Let's quickly clarify NIL for our listeners. Name, image, and likeness.
Right.
It's the rule change from a few years ago that finally allowed collegiate athletes to sign endorsement deals and actually make money off their own fame.
Exactly.
And JMI is facilitating this. The article gives this perfect example of how this works in real time. During the NCAA tournament, UK men's basketball star Otega Owa hit this unbelievable half-court buzzer beater that sent their first-round game into overtime.
It is the exact kind of viral moment that completely defines March Madness. I mean, under the old amateurism rules, Owa would get a pat on the back and maybe a feature on SportsCenter.
But under the new ecosystem, JMI steps in immediately.
Instantly.
They help him capitalize on that instantaneous market-driven opportunity by connecting him with UK's existing corporate sponsors to sign endorsement deals while his name is literally trending.
It's brilliant. And Archie outlined a future strategy that goes even further than that. Yeah, they plan to pursue more NIL deals with booster-owned businesses. The goal is to literally redirect some of the corporate sponsorship revenue that historically went directly to the university's coffers and instead route it to the athletes through NIL endorsement deals. Wow. So JMI is basically acting as this massive financial circulatory system, pumping corporate money through the school and directly into the players' pockets.
Now, on paper, this sounds like a win-win, right? JMI is guaranteeing the school $500 million, and they are actively making the beloved star players rich.
You'd think everyone would be thrilled.
Yeah, you would assume the fan base would treat JMI like local heroes, but that is not the case at all. The article highlights that JMI is facing heated criticism from the UK fan base. Why are the fans turning on the very company that's funding their team?
The anger primarily stems from JMI's management of the NIL collective.
Okay, let's define the collective because it's a very specific, somewhat controversial structure in modern college sports.
Right, so an NIL collective is essentially an independent organization, usually formed by wealthy boosters and fans, that pools donated money together.
Okay.
That money is then used to pay players through endorsement deals, effectively operating as a payroll system to attract high school recruits and keep current players from transferring out to rival schools.
So fans are donating their own hard-earned money to this collective, expecting it to result in top-tier recruits and a winning product on the court.
Exactly. And when top recruits go elsewhere, or the team underperforms, the fans who donated feel like their money was mismanaged.
Naturally.
They look at the somewhat opaque structure of the collective, they see a massive corporate entity like JMI involved, and they demand accountability. The fans are basically frustrated by what they perceive as a lack of transparency and a poor return on their investment.
Which leads us to this fascinating confrontation in the source material. Archie had to address the specific public relations problem with the Champions Blue Board. And for context, Champions Blue LLC is the official entity formed by prominent boosters that oversees UK's NIL efforts. When confronted by this oversight board about the fan backlash, Archie's response was, well, it was incredibly revealing.
Because you would expect a standard corporate response, right? Something like, we will increase transparency, or we'll release a detailed financial report explaining our fees.
Right, just standard damage control.
Instead, his proposed solution to fan anger is to build a media empire.
It's wild.
In a partnership with UK Athletics and the College of Communications, JMI actually helped fund a physical downtown broadcast studio outside Rupp Arena. Archie stated that his dream is to have that studio firing 10 to 12 hours a day, producing branded content featuring athletes and university talent.
A 12-hour-a-day content studio just to manage the fans.
Yep. And he specifically mentioned using trusted, established local media personalities. He named Tom Leach, the longtime radio play-by-play announcer for UK sports. Archie's exact quote regarding the purpose of this studio and using trusted voices was literally to control that message.
Control that message. That is a chillingly blunt phrase.
It really is.
They aren't relying on local newspapers or independent sports talk radio to objectively analyze their NIL strategy and explain it to the fans. They are bypassing independent journalism entirely.
Completely bypassing it.
They're building their own dedicated broadcast network, employing the voices the fans already have an emotional connection with to just beam the corporate narrative directly into the fans' homes.
It's the complete internalization of media. I mean, if the traditional press or social media is going to amplify fan criticism about your financial management, you simply become the press.
Right.
You flood the zone with high-quality branded content. You make the fan base feel intimately connected to the athletes through these slickly produced interviews, all while subtly reinforcing the overarching value of JMI and the university's financial strategy.
It is highly sophisticated corporate communications, completely disguised as objective sports entertainment. And frankly, it feels a little bit like state-sponsored media for a college athletic department.
Well, it demonstrates the sheer scale of the operation required to maintain a modern collegiate sports program. When you have $500 million on the line, you cannot afford to let angry fans dictate the narrative on message boards.
No, you can't.
You have to manufacture consensus.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today, and it really paints a picture of a system walking this razor-thin tightrope.
Absolutely.
On one side, you have the historic, emotional weight of a 1950s arena that serves as a memorial to thousands of fallen soldiers and a fan base that demands ultimate reverence for tradition.
Right.
But on the other side, you have the cold, unavoidable reality of a $20.5 million annual bill mandated by a federal antitrust settlement.
And bridging that gap requires unprecedented corporate maneuvering. It requires convincing fans that a corporate sponsor is preserving a war memorial.
Right.
It requires slicing up 4 square-inch patches on a jersey and pricing them dynamically based on complex television metrics. And it requires a $500 million corporate partner building a dedicated media studio just to keep the fans compliant and the money flowing.
which leaves us with a lingering thought, something for you to mull over long after this deep dive is done. We started by looking at how a university manages an athletic department. But look at the sheer scale of what we just discussed.
It's massive.
If a university requires a $500 million marketing partner, and that partner has to run a dedicated 12-hour-a-day content studio just to control the message and fund legal settlements, at what point does the university itself become secondary?
It is the defining question of this era. I mean, are we witnessing the final transition of college athletics from an extracurricular collegiate activity into fully independent, self-contained media and entertainment conglomerates that just happen to license the name of a school?
Exactly. When you look at that historic monument in the town square and you see the neon logo that says preserved by a corporate sponsor, you really have to ask yourself, is the preservation they're fighting so hard for already gone? Has we already crossed the line from a sacred civic institution to just another piece of highly optimized commercial real estate?